In the heart of Southeast Asia, a quiet storm is brewing, one that carries the scent of ambition, resilience, and rediscovery. For decades, Malaysia stood in the shadows of its smaller yet swifter neighbor, Singapore, watching the island nation transform into a global symbol of efficiency and prosperity. Yet, while the world's gaze remained fixed on Singapore's glittering skyline and remarkable ascent, something deeper and more profound began to stir within Malaysia. Beneath the calm veneer of familiarity, an awakening was taking place, not of rage or rivalry, but of realization. Malaysia, a land rich with natural resources, cultural depth, and youthful energy, began to sense that its time to re-emerge had come once again. The storm forming in silence was not destructive. It was transformative, driven by a hunger to rebuild, redefine, and rise. Across the country, the winds of change could be felt in the rhythm of daily life. The factories of Johor buzzed with new life, as entrepreneurs and investors started to recognize the strategic advantage of being next to one of Asia's most successful economies. In Penang, once dubbed the Silicon Valley of the East, innovation began to sparkle anew, with Malaysian engineers, developers, and thinkers reclaiming their confidence. The streets of Kuala Lumpur echoed with fresh ambition, from the vibrant chatter of young professionals in cafes to the bold voices of leaders calling for reform and reinvention. Malaysia was no longer content to be a footnote in someone else's success story. It was ready to write its own. But what makes this resurgence remarkable is not mere economic ambition. It is the spirit that drives it. A spirit forged in adversity, shaped by a complex history, and strengthened by the diversity of its people. Malays, Chinese, Indians, and countless indigenous communities form the beating heart of a nation that has always drawn power from its plurality. For years, internal divisions, political struggles, and uneven growth had slowed the country's march toward greatness. Now, those same challenges were being reinterpreted as sources of resilience. The understanding was growing that true progress would not come from imitation but from authenticity, from embracing what makes Malaysia distinct rather than copying what makes Singapore admired. As the storm gathers strength, Malaysia's youth stand at its forefront. This generation, unburdened by the nostalgia of the past, looks outward to the world with boldness and creativity. They see opportunities in technology, green energy, and digital innovation arenas where Malaysia can compete not through sheer size or wealth, but through agility and vision. Universities, startups, and research centers are beginning to pulse with collaboration, linking talent across borders and industries. For every challenge Malaysia faces, from governance to infrastructure, there is a new mindset emerging, one that refuses to see limits where possibility exists. It is this mindset that fuels the storm's intensity, transforming quiet frustration into constructive ambition. Beyond the headlines and political noise, what is happening in Malaysia is something elemental, a reawakening of national will. It is the realization that progress does not belong to the few but to the many, that true growth lies not in rivalry, but in reclaiming one's sense of purpose. The calm determination spreading across Malaysia's cities, villages, and islands speaks of a people ready to reclaim control of their narrative. The scent of ambition in the air is unmistakable, infused with the earthy fragrance of renewal. For while the world may still see a nation defined by its past challenges, Malaysia itself sees a horizon glowing with opportunity, waiting to be reached. Once overshadowed by its gleaming neighbor, Malaysia now rises from the mist, ready to reclaim its place on the global stage. For years, Singapore has stood as the emblem of Southeast Asian success, a beacon of order, innovation, and relentless progress. Its skyline, glittering with towers of glass and steel, has long symbolized what efficiency and vision can achieve. Yet, while Singapore's brilliance captured the admiration of the world, Malaysia watched quietly, learning, adapting, and waiting. Now, the era of waiting has ended. Beneath the surface of this calm nation, something powerful has taken root, a determination not to follow, but to lead, not to imitate, but to redefine. Malaysia's resurgence is not a moment of envy, it is an assertion of identity, a declaration that its story is far from over. The air of renewal can be felt in every corner of the country. In the north, the factories of Penang hum with energy, producing high-tech components that feed global supply chains. In the south, Johor's ports and industrial zones are surging with investment, acting as a bridge between Malaysia's vision and Singapore's demand. Kuala Lumpur, with its ever-evolving skyline, pulses with ambition as entrepreneurs, investors, and dreamers gather to shape the next chapter of national growth. Where once Malaysia was content to play the role of supplier and neighbor, today it seeks to stand shoulder to shoulder with the world's economic powers. The tone has shifted from quiet endurance to bold resurgence, from patience to purpose. This rising confidence stems from a deeper understanding of balance. Malaysia knows that its strength lies not in direct competition, but in its ability to merge tradition with transformation. Its agricultural roots still feed millions, but now coexist with booming technology sectors, renewable energy projects, and a flourishing digital economy. The once slow pace of reform has given way to a sense of urgency, an awareness that the world no longer waits for those who hesitate. Policies promoting innovation, investment, and sustainability are beginning to reshape the national outlook. With each small victory, a new tech startup, a manufacturing breakthrough, a university-led research success, Malaysia's narrative grows stronger and more self-assured. But this rise is not only about economics, it is about pride. For too long, Malaysia's story has been told in comparison to others, measured against standards set beyond its borders. Now, it begins to define success on its own terms. Its cultural richness, its linguistic diversity, its tapestry of traditions, all are being reframed as assets rather than challenges. This multicultural foundation gives Malaysia a rare adaptability, a global mindset rooted in local authenticity. It is this blend that allows the nation to face an interconnected world with creativity and openness, positioning itself not just as a regional player, but as a global connector. In the hearts of its people, there is a renewed sense of ownership. The farmers, engineers, teachers, and young innovators who form the backbone of the nation are starting to believe once more in the idea of Malaysian excellence. Across cities and rural landscapes alike, there is a quiet but unshakable belief that the future can be different from the past. The nation's progress is not driven by a single leader or institution, but by a collective awakening, a realization that Malaysia's time to rise again is not in some distant tomorrow, but in the present moment. The mist that once obscured its vision is lifting. revealing a country ready to step into its own light, confident and unafraid. The tides of history, long favoring Singapore's precision and discipline, begin to shift toward Malaysia's untapped might and boundless potential. For decades, Singapore was seen as the symbol of order, strategy, and calculated excellence, a nation that turned scarcity into strength, transforming itself from a humble port into a global powerhouse. It was admired for its discipline, its structure, its relentless focus on progress. Meanwhile, Malaysia, larger in land, richer in resources, and brimming with diversity, often found itself portrayed as the sleeping giant of the region, capable yet inconsistent, abundant yet underachieving. But history, like the ocean, is never still. The current that once carried Singapore forward now begins to swirl differently, and the waves that once lapped gently against Malaysia's shores are growing in power and direction. Change often begins not with grand proclamations, but with quiet shifts beneath the surface. Malaysia's economic tide is turning, driven by forces both internal and global. As the world rethinks supply chains, energy sources, and sustainable development, Malaysia's strengths suddenly matter more than ever. Its strategic location between East and West gives it a vantage point few others can match. Its natural wealth, from palm oil and petroleum to rare earth minerals and vast agricultural capacity, provides a foundation for renewal. But beyond its material assets, what truly fuels this momentum is a newfound sense of confidence, a collective awakening to the idea that Malaysia's story has entered a new phase. No longer is it defined by comparison, it is defined by capability. Across industries, a quiet transformation unfolds. Manufacturing sectors are evolving into innovation hubs where automation, AI, and data-driven design begin to replace outdated systems. The digital economy, once a whisper, now roars with vitality as Malaysia positions itself as a regional leader in fintech, e-commerce, and cybersecurity. Young entrepreneurs, armed with global perspectives and local pride, are returning from abroad to build at home. In education, new partnerships and research initiatives are taking shape, creating a bridge between academia and industry. Each of these developments is like a ripple on the water, small, perhaps, but together, forming a tide too powerful to ignore. The discipline once admired in Singapore is now being reinterpreted in Malaysia as adaptability, the ability to move fluidly with the demands of a changing world. Beneath these economic shifts lies a deeper emotional current. For years, Malaysia's identity has been shaped by contrast, defined in relation to others rather than in its own right. That narrative is beginning to dissolve. A growing pride in national potential is replacing the old hesitations. The younger generation sees not limitation, but leverage. They view diversity not as division, but as dynamism. Malaysia's mix of cultures, languages, and traditions has become an engine of creativity, a natural advantage in an age that prizes innovation and inclusivity. The cultural vibrancy that colors every city and village is now seen not as chaos, but as harmony in motion, a reflection of how flexibility and coexistence can thrive side by side. Singapore's precision remains a marvel, but Malaysia's strength lies in its spontaneity, its capacity to evolve in ways that cannot be predicted or contained. As the tides shift, Malaysia's resilience, tested through political transitions, global disruptions, and economic recalibrations becomes its greatest asset. What once appeared as instability is now understood as adaptability. What once seemed like hesitation is now patience, and patience, when paired with purpose, creates momentum that no tide can resist. The ocean of opportunity that surrounds Southeast Asia is vast and unforgiving, but in its depths, Malaysia has found its current once more, and it is moving forward with determination, no longer carried by the tides of history, but shaping them instead. Beneath the calm surface of economic statistics and trade charts, a pulse quickens the sound of a nation reigniting its competitive flame. For too long, Malaysia's progress has been measured by numbers on paper: GDP growth, export values, and foreign investment inflows. These metrics, while essential, often conceal the deeper story, the heartbeat of a people rediscovering their ambition. What is happening in Malaysia today cannot be captured in a spreadsheet or explained solely by market reports. It is something more human, more instinctive. It is the stirring of drive, the awakening of purpose, the return of confidence in a nation that had momentarily lost faith in its own potential. This is not the noise of chaos, but the rhythm of renewal, echoing through its cities, industries, and mines. Everywhere, signs of this pulse are emerging. In Kuala Lumpur, the young workforce is no longer content with stability alone. They crave impact. Startups multiply across co-working spaces, fueled by daring ideas and digital ambition. In Penang, engineers and innovators work late into the night, crafting technologies that compete not just regionally but globally. Johor, once known mainly as Singapore's industrial neighbor, is building its own identity, attracting multinational corporations that now see Malaysia not as an extension, but as a destination. The country's ports hum with renewed vigor, its highways and railways thrum with movement, and its classrooms are alive with curiosity. Beneath the surface of routine, a generation is rising that refuses to be ordinary. This pulse is not driven by imitation, but by reinvention. Malaysia's leaders, thinkers, and citizens are beginning to understand that catching up to others is not the goal. The goal is to create a new benchmark. The strength of Malaysia lies in its duality, a country both modern and rooted, fast-growing, yet mindful of its traditions. This balance allows it to adapt without losing identity. The nation's creative industries are flourishing, merging cultural authenticity with global relevance. Film, art, fashion, and music are telling the Malaysian story in ways that resonate beyond borders. The once muted voice of Malaysia is beginning to echo again, not in defiance, but in self-assurance. The flame that had dimmed is now burning brighter, sustained not by envy, but by pride. The private sector, too, is pulsing with renewed intent. Small and medium enterprises, long considered the backbone of Malaysia's economy, are now embracing technology and sustainability. They are proving that innovation is not confined to tech giants or global firms, but can emerge from local passion and perseverance. Government policies, though cautious, are evolving to support this transformation, focusing on inclusivity, digitalization, and green growth. Yet the true power behind Malaysia's comeback lies not in policy, but in mindset. The quiet confidence of a people who have decided that their best days are not behind them. Beyond the economy, the pulse beats in the social fabric of the nation. Communities are rediscovering collaboration across cultural and political lines. The Malaysian spirit, kind, adaptive, and industrious, is showing its resilience once again. In the face of global challenges like climate change, technological disruption, and economic uncertainty, Malaysians are responding not with fear, but with focus. This is not the hurried pace of imitation, but the steady rhythm of evolution. It is the heartbeat of a country that refuses to surrender to stagnation. The rhythm grows stronger each day, amplified by the determination of millions who believe that Malaysia's flame, once reignited, can light the way for a new era of growth and identity. This is not a tale of rivalry alone, but of redemption, a story of a country rediscovering its strength, its pride, and its purpose. For years, Malaysia's journey has been viewed through the narrow lens of comparison, as though its destiny were forever tied to the shadow of its neighbor. But this story runs deeper than competition. It is about a nation standing before the mirror of its own history and recognizing both its scars and its potential. Redemption, after all, is not born from perfection, but from perseverance, from the courage to rebuild what was lost, to reignite what was forgotten, and to reclaim what was once doubted. Malaysia's revival is not an act of defiance against others, but an act of reconciliation with itself. The essence of this redemption lies in rediscovering identity. Malaysia is not a monolith. It is a mosaic of cultures, beliefs, and languages that weave together into a single, vibrant fabric. For a time, these differences were seen as obstacles, sources of division that hindered collective progress. Yet now, they are being reimagined as strengths, as threads of innovation and adaptability that no single culture could achieve alone. The spirit of Malaysia thrives in its diversity, and through that diversity comes resilience. The rediscovery of national strength begins not in grand gestures, but in small moments of unity in classrooms where multiple tongues are spoken, in workplaces where ideas merge across boundaries, and in communities where cooperation triumphs over competition. It is in these spaces that the quiet work of redemption takes root. Economically, this redemption takes the form of reinvention. Malaysia is no longer content to rely on its traditional pillars of industry. It seeks transformation in technology, education, and sustainability. The nation is learning that prosperity cannot be borrowed. It must be built, and it must be built from within. Through investment in renewable energy, digital infrastructure, and the creative economy, Malaysia is not simply chasing global trends, it is shaping its own path. Factories are becoming smarter, cities greener, and young minds sharper. The old model of progress, dependent, cautious, reactive, is giving way to a new one, independent, bold, and visionary. It is in this transformation that Malaysia finds redemption from its years of hesitation, proving that renewal is not about speed, but about direction. But perhaps the most profound layer of redemption is psychological. For too long, Malaysia carried the weight of expectation from outsiders and from within. It was told what it should be, how it should perform, whom it should emulate. Yet, in the process of rediscovery, Malaysia is shedding those burdens and finding confidence in authenticity. It no longer seeks validation through comparison, but through contribution. The narrative is shifting from catching up to standing out. The people of Malaysia, the students, entrepreneurs, farmers, and artists are beginning to see themselves not as participants in someone else's success, but as architects of their own. This mental shift, subtle yet powerful, marks the true beginning of a nation's redemption. At the core of this story is purpose. Malaysia's resurgence is not driven solely by economics or politics. It is driven by a collective yearning to matter, to be relevant, respected, and self-reliant. From the bustling city centers to the quiet rural landscapes, a sense of mission is emerging, to build a Malaysia that honors its past while embracing its future. It is a purpose that transcends rivalry, reaching instead for legacy. In rediscovering its pride and strength, Malaysia is not challenging Singapore or the world. It is challenging itself to rise, to learn, and to lead with the wisdom that only a nation reborn can truly possess. From the bustling streets of Kuala Lumpur to the industrial powerhouses of Penang and Johor, a quiet revolution is unfolding. It is not marked by the noise of protest or the drama of upheaval, but by the hum of transformation, the collective movement of a nation rediscovering its momentum. In every corner of Malaysia, there is a growing sense of purpose. The air feels charged with possibility, the kind that does not come from external praise, but from internal conviction. The people are beginning to believe once again in what their nation can achieve, not because they are told to, but because they can see the changes taking shape before their eyes. The revolution is not political, it is personal, a shift in mindset, a reawakening of ambition, and a recognition that progress must begin from within. Kuala Lumpur, long the heartbeat of the nation, is evolving into something more than just a city of commerce and skyscrapers. Beneath its glittering skyline, ideas are taking root, ideas that merge creativity with enterprise, sustainability with profitability. Young Malaysians are transforming the capital into a hub of innovation where art, technology, and culture intersect. Cafes have become incubators of thought. Startups are flourishing in every district, and a generation of thinkers is challenging the limits of what Malaysia can be. These are not isolated acts of entrepreneurship. They are symbols of a nation shedding its fear of failure. Kuala Lumpur's rhythm has changed its pulse beats not to the sound of imitation, but of invention. Further north, in Penang, the story takes a different tone but carries the same spirit. Once the jewel of British Malaya, and later the technological heart of Malaysia, Penang is reclaiming its role as a cradle of innovation. Factories that once churned out semiconductors for foreign giants are now breeding grounds for homegrown talent. Engineers, coders, and designers collaborate in spaces that blur the line between industrial might and creative energy. The island's unique blend of heritage and modernity has become its competitive edge, drawing investors and thinkers who seek a balance between progress and identity. Here, the revolution is quiet but confident, built on consistency, precision, and pride in craftsmanship. Penang stands as a testament that Malaysia's strength lies not just in its ambition, but in its ability to evolve without losing its soul. In the south, Johor hums with a different kind of energy, one driven by opportunity and strategic vision. Positioned next to Singapore, Johor once lived, in the shadow of its neighbour's economic brilliance. Today, that proximity has become its advantage. Massive industrial zones, logistics hubs, and port developments have turned Johor into a cornerstone of Malaysia's new growth. The region is not merely reacting to Singapore's influence but leveraging it, attracting companies, talent, and technologies that see value in Malaysia's scale, affordability, and strategic depth. The Iskandar region, in particular, has become a symbol of collaboration and reinvention, proving that Malaysia's rise is not a challenge to Singapore, but a complement to it. The quiet revolution here is pragmatic, built not on emotion, but on the logic of long-term progress. Across the nation, this transformation is being fueled by a shift in collective attitude. Malaysians are no longer waiting for change to come from above. They are building it from the ground up. Farmers adopting smart agriculture, teachers integrating digital learning, artists redefining cultural expression, all contribute to the rhythm of renewal. The quiet revolution is not uniform, yet it is united by a shared conviction that Malaysia's destiny is in Malaysian hands. From the capital's bustling streets to the industrial corridors of its key regions, the movement is growing stronger, its roots spreading deeper with every passing day, carried forward by the belief that greatness is not given but earned.